We're on text 9 of chapter 5. Okay, well, let's see if I can get a little bit of enthusiasm from what I was reading. You wait till you see this video. It's just the reading of it just like made me, closer to Krishna, and that's the only thing that matters,
Yeah.
It's 9. Yata dharma dayas charta muni varyanukirtita na tirta Vyāsadevasya mahina hi anuvardinita. Synonyms: yata, as much as, dharma daya, all 4 principles of religious behavior, cha, and arta, purposes, muni varya, by yourself, the great sage, anukirtita, repeatedly described, not tata, in that way, Vyāsadevasya, of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, mahimna, glories. He, certainly, anuvarnita, so constantly described. Translation: although, O great sage, you have very broadly described the 4 principles beginning with religious performances, you have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality. Vyāsadeva. We'll take turns reading the purport paragraphs.
The purport is the prompt diagnosis of Sri Nārada is at once declared. The root cause of the despondency of Vyāsadeva was his deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord. In his various editions of the Puranas, he has certainly, as a matter of course, given descriptions of the glories of the Lord with Sri Krishna, but not as many as given to religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. These 4 items are by far inferior to entanglement in the devotional service of the Lord. Sri Vyāsadeva, as the authorized scholar, knew very well in this difference, and still, instead of giving more importance to the better type of engagement, namely devotional service to the Lord, he had more or less improperly used his valuable time, and thus he was despondent. From this, it is clearly indicated that no one can be pleased substantially without being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, this fact is clearly mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, until you come to the point where Krishna is pleased and you want to please Krishna, you really want to engage in his service because you just love him. So until you come to that platform, you're not really satisfied with anything. It's like St. Augustine. He said, our hearts are restless until they rest in thee. So after liberation, which is the last item in the line of performing religiosity, etc., one is engaged in pure devotional service. This is called the stage of self-realization, or the Brahma-bhuta stage. After attainment of this Brahma-bhuta stage, one is satisfied. But satisfaction is the beginning of transcendental bliss. It's just amazing how vast Krishna consciousness is. It's like, the satisfaction, you're satisfied completely. There's nothing you've been, but that's just the beginning. And then you get into, the Bhagavatam is like the graduate study. Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary study. And when you surrender, and then when you surrender, you get to the stage of satisfaction. You find out that there's nothing better than this. But that's just the beginning. And then you start to understand, like, what are the different relationships we can have with Krishna, and it becomes unlimited. One should progress by attaining neutrality and equality in the relative world. And passing this stage of equanimity, one is fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the instruction of the personality of Godhead in the Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion is that in order to maintain the status quo of the Brahma-bhuta stage, and also to increase the degree of transcendental realization, Nārada recommended to Vyāsadeva that he, Vyāsadeva, should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from gross despondency. Text 10. I'm just going to read the translation, and then we'll take turns. You can read the first 2 paragraphs of the purport. These words, I love this verse. This is one of the great verses of the Bhagavatam. This is like comparing all other books to the Bhagavatam. They don't even compare, you know. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. You know, crows, Prabhupada talked about crows. If somebody spits out a window in India, the crows will swoop down and eat it.
Yeah.
And they feed on garbage. And the people the types of birds that are like transcendental birds, they can actually extract the essence of something, like a swan. A swan lives on crystal clear lakes with lotus flowers. And a swan has a unique ability to take a mixture of milk and water, and by some filtering process is able to take out the milk from the water, leave the water, but suck out the milk. Isn't that incredible?
That is incredible.
That's just the part of the mystic power that Krishna gives all these different living entities. Go ahead with the purport.
The purport is the crows and the swans are not birds of the same feather. Because of their different mental attitudes, the fruitive workers or passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all-perfect saintly people are compared to the swans. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruitive workers take pleasure in wine and women and places for gross sense pleasure. The swans do not take pleasure in the places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings. They are instead seen in the atmosphere of natural scenic beauty, where there are transparent reservoirs of water nicely decorated with stems of lotus flowers and variegated colors of natural beauty. This is the difference between the two classes of birds.
Go ahead, read the next paragraph.
Oh yeah, the 2 cents. Nature has influenced different species of life with different mentalities, and it is not possible to bring them up into the same rank and file. Similarly,
yeah, I mean, if you feed a pig some burfi or some samosas, it prefers to eat stool.
Yeah,
It likes stool. You know, that's what pigs eat. So you can't like, you know, do a reformation of the pigs and say, Mr. Pig, you know, here, take some nice sweetmeats. You know, the pig will say, no, I prefer stew. One time, actually, Lord Indra, he was cursed and he had to leave the heavenly planets. That's like one of the biggest enjoyment places in the universe. You know, heavenly planet, these are material planets, but still, you know, he had a standard of living that was way above every other planet in this material universe. And he got cursed somehow, and he had to take birth as a pig in the material world. And he, you know, one time, you know, he was living that way, and he had his sow, a wife, and a bunch of piglets and stuff. And so the demigods, all of a sudden, there was a big war between the demigods and the demons, and they wanted him back so he could, you know, so they decided to like do some sacrifices to lift the curse. And so, you know, they went to him. He said, look, hey, Indra, come back to the heavenly planets. We're in a lot of trouble here. You got to come back and lead our armies and stuff. He said, no, why should I don't want to go back. I got my wife, pig, sow. I got my piglets. I'm very happy here. I don't want to go back. So you can't like change the standard of living of a certain living entity just by, you know, by any method, because every living entity is born into a certain body due to their karma or by cursing in Indra's case. But you can't change that. You have to wait until, you know, till the next life, unless you're a human being, and then you can get out of the whole cycle of birth and death altogether. Similarly, there are different kinds of literature for different types of men of different mentality. Mostly the market literatures which attract men of the crows categories are literatures containing refused remnants of sensuous topics. Mm-hmm. They are generally known as mundane talks in relation with the gross body and subtle mind. They are full of subject matter described in decorative language, full of mundane similes and metaphorical arrangements. Yet, with all that, they do not glorify the Lord. Such poetry and prose on any subject matter is considered decoration of a dead body. Spiritually advanced men who are compared to the swans do not take pleasure in such dead literatures, which are sources of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. These literatures, in the mode of passion and ignorance, are distributed under different labels, but they can hardly help with the spiritual urge of the human being, and thus the swan-like spiritually advanced men have nothing to do with them. Such spiritually advanced men are called manasa, because they keep up the standard of transcendental voluntary service to the Lord on the spiritual plane. This completely forbids fruitive activities for gross bodily sense gratification or subtle speculation of the material egoistic mind. Go ahead and read the rest of it.
Social literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, and politicians who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense pleasure are all dolls of the material energy. Yeah, that's true. They are all take pleasure in a place where they reject subject matters are thrown according to the Swami Śrīdārada. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Sridhar Swami was one of the great acharyas that lived actually before Lord Chaitanya, and he was Lord Chaitanya really respected his opinion.
Yeah, this is the pleasure of the prostitute hunters, but literatures which describe the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramahansas, who have grasped the essence of the human activities.
Parama means supreme, and Hamsa means swan. The supreme swans, the saintly persons, are on the topmost level of spiritual realization. They're called Paramahansas. Okay, I'm gonna continue to read the Sanskrit here because I love Sanskrit. It's got so much meaning packed into each word. Tadvag vishargo janatagda viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abhadhavati api namani anantasya yasho nikritani yat Shrivanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadava. This is a famous verse too. Tat, that, vuk, vocabulary, visharga, creation, janata, the people in general, aga, sins, viplava, revolutionary. Oh yeah, this is one of the best verses in the Bhagavatam. Mm-hmm. This is like a call to revolution. This is Prabhupada's clarion call, why he wrote the Bhagavatam. This verse right here. Viplava, revolutionary, Yasmin, in which pratishlokam, each and every stanza, above davati, irregularly composed, api, in spite of, namani, transcendental names, etc., anantasya, of the unlimited Lord, yasha, glories, akitani, depicted, yet what? Shrinvanti, do hear, gayanti, do sing, grinanti, do accept, sadava, the purified men who are honest. Translation. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is of a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Go ahead.
The purport is it is a qualification of the great thinkers to pick up the best even for the worst. It is said that the intelligent man should pick up nectar from a stalk of poison, should accept gold even for a filthy place, should accept a good and qualified wife even for an obscure family, and should accept a good lesson even from a man or from a teacher who comes from the untouchables. These are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place without exception, but a saint is far above the level of an ordinary man. he is always absorbed in glorifying the Lord, the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord, the polluted atmosphere of the world will change. And as a result of the propagating the transcendental literatures like Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. While preparing these commentations on the particular stanza of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we have a crisis before us. Our neighboring friend China has attacked the border of India with a militaristic spirit, which they're doing that to everybody. We have practically no business in the political field, yet we still that previous there with both China and India, and they both live peacefully for the centuries without ill feeling. The reason is that they lived those days in the atmosphere of God conscious, in every country over the surface of the world was God fearing, pure hearted, and simple, and there was no question of political diplomacy. This is no cause of quarrel between the two countries of China and India over the land which is not very suitable for habitation, and certainly there is no cause of fighting on this issue, but due to the age of quarrel, Cali. Oh, hold on, let me see where the quarrel is count.
Okay. It's right on top there. Due to the age of quarrel, Kali.
Okay, I got due to the age of Kali,
which we have discussed. It's right at the top of the page.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was like, I just had it, which we have discussed. There is always a chance of quarrel on slight provocation. This is due to not to the issue in question, but due to the polluted atmosphere of the sage. Systematically, there is a propaganda by a section of the people to stop glorification of the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, there is a great need for disseminating the message of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam all over the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam through the world to all the supermost good as well, to bring about the desired peace in the world, because India has failed in her duty by neglecting the responsible world. But there is so much quarrel and trouble all over the world. We are confident that if the transcendental message of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is received only by the leading men of the world, certainly there will be a change of heart, and naturally the people in general will follow them. The mass of the people in general are tools in the hands of the modern politicians and leaders of the people. If there is a change of the heart of the leaders only, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. We know that our honest attempt to present this great literature conveying transcendental message for reviving the God consciousness of the people in general and re-spiritualizing the world atmosphere is fraught with many difficulties of presenting this matter in adequate language. Especially a foreign language will certainly fail, and there will be so many literary discrepancies despite our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of the society will still accept this due to it being an honest attempt to glorify the Almighty God. When there is a fire in a house, the inmates of the house go out to get help from the neighbors who may be foreigners, and yet knowing the language the victims of the fire express themselves, and the neighbors understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast this transcendental message of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world. After all, it is a technical science of the spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. It is the techniques of the great literature are understood by the people of the world. There will be success.
Okay. Yeah. You don't have to speak the same language. You just understand the urgency of the message. And if you love God, then you want to share it with others, and you know how much important it is to disseminate it, because people are fighting. I mean, all over the world. This world is like on the verge of nuclear war at any moment. North Korea, Iran, all these different countries are really belligerent. And
Yes.
it's like a tinderbox, Prabhupada said, if you have nuclear weapons, they're going to be used. And that will cause havoc. It can't end the entire civilization. It's not possible, but it'll be definitely miserable if that happens. When there are too many materialistic activities by the people in general all over the world, there is no wonder that a person or a nation attacks another person or nation on slight provocation. Like if you, say, for example, if Trump got elected again, somebody criticizes his hair.
Yeah.
Press the nuclear button, I don't trust that guy.
No, not at all.
That is the rule in this age of Kali or quarrel. The atmosphere is already polluted with corruption of all descriptions, and everyone knows it well. There are so many unwanted literatures full of materialistic ideas of sense gratification. In many countries, there are bodies appointed by the state to detect or censor obscene literature. That means that neither the government nor the responsible leaders of the public want such literature, and yet it is in the marketplace because people want it for sense gratification. The people in general want to read. That is a natural instinct, but because their minds are polluted, they want such literatures. Under the circumstances, transcendental literatures like Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam will not only diminish the activities of the corrupt minds of the people in general, but will also supply food for their hankering after reading some interesting literature. In the beginning, they might not like it because one suffering from jaundice is reluctant to take sugar candy. But we should know that sugar candy is the only remedy for jaundice. Similarly, let there be systematic propaganda for popularizing reading of the Bhagavad Gita and the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which will act like sugar candy for the jaundice-like condition of sense gratification. When men have a taste for this literature, the other literatures, which are catering poison to society, will then automatically cease. We are sure, therefore, that everyone in human society will welcome Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, even though now is presented with so many faults, for it is recommended by Sri Nārada, who has kindly appeared in this chapter. Yeah, that's an awesome verse.
It's deep.
Yeah, I mean, Bhagavatam is Krishna. There's no difference between, and his devotees are also, like in New Vrindavan, when they first started out, there's so much mud all over New Vrindavan, and they're trying to build it, and they're walking up and down the road to the old cabin up in the hill. And you ever been up there?
Where is that?
The cabin, the original cabin in the old Vrindavan farm where that
kind of. It was
that,
little. It was
you have to walk
of.
Before, you had to walk like a mile and a half down this muddy road, and people, as soon as you got to New Vrindavan, they would hand out boots for walking in the mud. And so, like devotees are known to be like walking books, but the devotees in New Vrindavan were walking books with boots on. Nice karmyam api achuta bhavam varjitam nasobate jnanam alam niranjanam kuta punasasvad adpatadram ishvare nacharpitam karma yad api akaranam. Synonyms: niskarmyam, self-realization, being freed from the reactions of fruitive work. Api, in spite of. Achuta, the infallible Lord. Bhava, conception. Varjitam, devoid of. Na, does not. Subhate, look well. Jnanam, transcendental knowledge. Alam, by and by. Niranjanam, free from designations. Kuta, where is. Puna, again. Sashvat, always. Adpadram, uncongenial. Ishvaret, unto the Lord. Na, not. Cha, and. Arpitam, offered. Karma, fruitive work. Yet api, what is. Akaranam, not fruitive. Translation: knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if it is devoid of conception of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? Go ahead.
The purport is, as referred to above, not only ordinary literature is devoid of the transcendental glorification of the Lord as condemned, but also Vedic literatures and speculation on the subject of impersonal Brahman when they are devoid of devotional service. When speculation on the impersonal Brahman is condemned on the above ground, then what to speak of ordinary fruitive work, which is not meant to fulfill the aim of the devotional service? Such speculative knowledge and fruitive work cannot lead one to the goal of perfection. Fruitive work in which almost all the people in general are engaged and is always painful either in the beginning or at the end. It can be fruitful only when made subservient to the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, also it is confirmed that the result of the such fruit of a work may be offered to for the service of the Lord. Otherwise, leads to the material bondage of the bona fide enjoyer of the fruit of work is the personality of Godhead, and thus, when it is engaged for the sense gratifications of the living being, it becomes an acute source of trouble.
Yeah, fruit of work means the karmic activities. When you work for something, you want to get paid for working hard. Like that saying goes, working hard, playing hard.
Yeah,
you enjoy, you work hard, and then you enjoy sense gratification. You go out, you drink, you get women, you get laid, and that kind of fruitive activity for a result, or anything, even like building a big skyscraper building takes so much endeavor, but it's all fruitive labor, and it's very difficult because you're exerting so much time and energy into something that's transient and temporary, and you're not going to take it with you, because it's impermanent. So the Bhagavad Gita, as it says, if you dovetail your fruitive work for Krishna, Krishna says, Yat karoshi yat asnashi yat juhosi darasi yat tapasyasi konteya yat kurushva madarpanam. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer or give away, all as well as all austerities that you may perform should be done as an offering unto me.
Yeah.
Krishna says. So whatever you do, even if you're shaving, even if you're, mowing the lawn or whatever, if you do it for Krishna and just offer it, then it becomes an offering. It becomes a sacrifice, and you become purified in your mind and heart, and you're no longer working for your own selfish endeavor. And then gradually your heart becomes purified, and Krishna will, as you surrender to me, Krishna says, I reward you accordingly. So you always have to be surrendered to God. And, when you have that constant awareness of his guiding hand in your life through the super soul and the scriptures, and we're chanting, then you can be on the transcendental platform all the time, and you become steady, and then you give taste, and then your taste develops into attachment, and attachment becomes love of God eventually. Anyway, we got less than a minute left. You got any quick question?
Yeah, well, it's actually with you. Is that why you're an Uber driver? Because you mentioned before you're not trying to do a job like, I know you mentioned GM plant, which was hell, but watching a documentary just gives you an idea what you went through. But is that why you do Uber? Because you want to, like, say, drive somebody to go to one place to another, and then you want to spend more time doing stuff like this? Like, you just want to spend more time.
Yeah, well, it's just like I can work whenever I want, wherever I want, and then spend as much time as I want to. I'm just a lazy bum, basically, and it's kind of a humble service because you're like serving other people. But I try to mix it with preaching. I have a 4K screen. I show people videos in my car now.
Wow.